Welcome back to the Naked Proverbs podcast, where we unclothe the truth about Black love, family, and marriage. My name is Nik Scott, one of your hosts, and I'm here with my husband.
What's going on? It's your boy Rich, and today we're going to talk about some of those kitchen conversations, being Black in America.
Right at the start of every episode, we always remind our listeners that we are not trained, licensed, or professional therapists or counselors. We've been married for quite a while and use Naked Proverbs as our platform to share our stories, our experience, our advice, and our opinions. If you haven't already, make sure you're following the Naked Proverbs on whatever podcasting platform you listen on. And if you like what you hear, show us your love and support by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes.
As we do in every episode, we want to take a moment and say thank you. Thank you to our listeners. We appreciate you tuning in and spending some time with us. So, something really cool happened last week. At least I think it was pretty cool. Deion Sanders was named the head coach of Jackson State. It's a football team.
Like the Deion Sanders?
Hall of Famer, played for Dallas.
Jackson State in Mississippi?
Yes.
That's cool.
And I think that there's so many little things that have happened this year that are turning points, I believe, when it comes to African Americans and athletics, right? We know that athletics is a huge moneymaker for universities. Yet, unfortunately, a lot of HBCUs have not been able to partake in that revenue because they're not getting the TV time, they're not getting, all the things that create that revenue. And now we've got star players that are saying, hey, I'm going to an HBCU. We've got coaches that are coming from, a past of being in the NFL and being a Hall of Famer and all these great things. And I think that there's really an opportunity for some serious change to happen.
There could be if this actually sticks. If it's something that's just trendy and that people are doing to bring publicity to themselves and maybe reignite their own level of notoriety or celebrity within the football or whatever sport it is network, then that is actually a disservice. But if this is a true effort on the part of Deion Sanders and whoever else is doing this, I don't know. If it's a true effort on their part, then I do think it can be transformational and completely change the game for NCAA athletics.
Because I think for me, what I think about is the millions of dollars every year that Black athletes, mainly because when you're talking about football and basketball, which are really the money makers for most of these universities, they are African American athletes. They are 90+% of the student athlete population when it comes to those sports. And like I said, those sports are the ones that bring in the money. So if star athletes start choosing HBCUs and people that have had success in these different, athletics, choose to come back and start to support HBCUs by being coaches or mentors or boosters or whatever, I really do think that it could open up a door of wealth that many HBCUs don't get to have right now.
Has Deion Sanders ever coached? Do you know?
He probably coached his kids' little league team. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Because, I'm not a great student of football for anybody listening. You know this. But I do know that just because you've played a sport and you've excelled at a sport and you said he's a Hall of Famer, so he's obviously reached the pinnacle of his career in football, doesn't necessarily mean that he would be a great coach. So again, I think, the celebrity of his name, I think is great. I also think it's pretty interesting that he chose Jackson State of all the other universities. I don't know if Jackson State has been known as a football school in their conference or not, but I do know that there's other more notable schools maybe that he could have aligned himself with.
But I don't know. I mean, you're making it sound though like he had a choice. You know, if the other more notable schools aren't looking for a head coach, then they don't just get to say, "Hey, Deion, you want to come coach for us?" And I think that even if he's not a great coach, his name in and of itself and the, you know, supposed staff that he has recruited to come coach with him, I think that it could have the impact of having star athletes, top, 10, top 100 athletes come to an HBCU when maybe they never would have even considered the HBCU before.
I hope so. I really, really hope so, because Deion Sanders is like a big deal in football and just in the Black community. So it would be huge if something like this works out. And I am optimistic about it. And I do hope that it does start to open collegiate or high school athletes' eyes to more options when it comes to their choices when they're signing their junior and senior year, senior year, I guess, and how they're choosing which schools to go to, because it could be a game changer for HBCUs and the revenue that they bring in.
So, our podcast is all about family, marriage, and there's a topic I think that is important when it comes to family, and that is being Black in America. Some people may look and say, well, how does this relate to families and marriage? But reality is, many of us can probably recall that time that our parents or someone that cared about us set us down and began to explain to us what it means to be Black in America. And I don't know if parents are still having those conversations. I know that we've had those conversations with our children, and it wasn't necessarily just a one-time sit down, but with all the things that are going on, just last week, Breonna Taylor, they basically indicted one police officer and let the rest of them go free and said, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. But I think for a lot of people in our community, that wasn't a shocker, sadly. And those types of things have happened. They continue to happen. So it's important to have these conversations about what it means to be Black in America with our children.
For me, a more direct way of saying this is teach your kids how to be Black in America, because the fact of the matter is that there are rules to being Black in America, and any Black person, I don't care who you're married to, whether you're married to a person in our community or not, that there are things that you can and cannot do. And maybe in your mind, you've made up that you have so much education or so much money, or you live in such a great neighborhood and drive such an expensive car that those rules don't apply to you. But let's be clear, these rules are both written and unwritten.
And I think, for me, especially 2020, but even before 2020, I've started to question, do the rules really matter? And what I mean by that is, and let's just name a few of those rules, right? Because we keep talking about the rules. But one rule I always think about is, as a young adolescent, my parents were like, listen, you can't have too many Black kids together in a group, because it will draw attention to you, and that attention will some kind of way turn into something bad, guaranteed. So that was something as simple as us all going to play at the park, right? Afterwards, we might play football, but we all 10 of us, all 15 of us, couldn't walk to the local convenience store and go get some Gatorade, because now we look like a gang, even though we were just playing football, or we were playing soccer, or we were whatever we were doing. So the funny thing is that rule has stuck with me my entire life. And for the longest, I just thought these were things my parents made up. But then when you start to interact with other Black people, they'll make comments or say things that make you realize, no, these are universal rules. Because I remember even being in college and it'd be a group of us and someone would be like, hey, now there's too many of us. There's already 3 of us. You can't come over here. And we might laugh it off, but everybody knew it wasn't a joke.
That is definitely a rule that I wasn't necessarily taught specifically, but I've always been aware that when there's too many Black people, there's going to be the perception from other people and sometimes from ourselves, because a lot of times we are the detriment to our own community, that there is nothing good happening in that group. It could be a group of people studying together. It could be a group of people doing something positive and as a collective unit. But yeah, that is one rule that I recall, not necessarily being taught, but definitely implementing throughout my life. One rule that my dad taught me very young is the rule that we're not on the same page, like period and point blank. We are not on the same page. You are not the same. You will always have to make better grades. You will always have to go further. You will always have to shine brighter just to get 1/10 of what you deserve in this country.
I mean, and there are many other rules, like if you get pulled over by a police officer, yes, sir, no, sir. You don't want to look them in their eye. You don't want to make them feel disrespected in any kind of way because it could lead to all sorts of things. And so, like I said, this is a podcast for Black families. So I'm going to make an assumption that you all know when we say the rules, what we're talking about, right? But I still go back to 2020 has made me question, do the rules matter? And what I mean by that is in 2020 and probably before, but with technology and all the things that are going on, things are, I think, highlighted more so just because we have access to see more. But I question if the rules have really helped us. Because when you can have someone, like I mentioned in the beginning, Breonna Taylor, get killed in her own home. This is the second person, in the last 2 years that I know where a police officer has killed a Black person in their home. And so it's like, even being at home where you should be able to be safe, you shouldn't have to follow these, unwritten and written rules. You should just be able to let your hair down in your castle and relax, right? But that can't happen still. Or we can talk about multiple instances of Black men that had carrying concealed permits and ended up dead, even though they had not broken any rules, even though they were following the rules that we've been taught we should follow. I mean, the list is long of how I don't believe the rules are protecting us anymore. I really don't.
I don't think the rules were ever set in place or passed down to protect us, more so for us to be aware. Because if you're completely oblivious to anything that you're doing is causing alarm or alert to other people, that could make the situation that much more dangerous. Mm-hmm. At worst, you could lose your life. But knowing is half the battle, right? Isn't that what they used to say? And I think that's what the rules are about. It's about that awareness about, you know what? I'm not going to just walk around oblivious thinking that the playing field is even when I know the playing field is not even. My dad used to say you have to work 10 times harder. I think it's more than that, honestly. But just knowing that, and not just knowing it and understanding it, but actually embracing it, right? Because I feel like this has a real negative feel to it, right? It almost feels like no matter what happens, you're either going to end up dead or just behind everybody. And that's not necessarily true.
I don't think that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is at some point, we have to do more than just have unspoken and unwritten rules. We have to have real change. And I think that there's a lot of that happening right now. So, I mean, I think about what you said in the beginning about being aware, right? And I would say that I am seeing more people outside of just our community that is aware of these unspoken rules that we've had to live by for so long, like generations. And I remember when I was in the military and a bunch of my buddies, I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia at the time. And a bunch of my buddies were like, let's go out. I heard there's this really great steak restaurant. And it was in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, like off a random dark road with no lights. And I wasn't going to go. And there was, only a couple of African-American officers. And one of them was like, well, Rich, I really want to go, which I knew what that meant. Well, if he went, that meant I had to go, or vice versa, because we're talking Georgia, dark backwoods, come up missing kind of place, right? So we went to dinner, and as we were sitting there, my buddy is like, hey, Rich, I'm about to go to the bathroom. And all these guys are looking at us like, why did he just tell you that? Because that is not something men say to each other on a regular, like, hey, I'm going to the bathroom. I immediately knew exactly what that meant. Start the clock. And if he ain't back in a few minutes, long enough to get in there, do his business and come back out, I need to go in there and find out what's going on. So because I think that we are seeing this change of people sharing these stories, that day I actually explained to them, because I could see, and I was a little bit older than most of the other guys. I could see they were totally confused at like, why did he just tell you he's going to the bathroom? And I explained to them, listen, we're in Georgia. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but everybody is not happy that we're in here, because my spidey senses were going off from the moment we opened the door. And I was like, so he told me that because whether you realize it or not, he could go in the bathroom, somebody could follow him, beat the hell out of him, and we all sitting here laughing, joking, drinking, and eating, and don't even think about it until oh, wait, where's he at? And I was like, so in our community, we have code words. We have things that we have to say to one another to protect ourselves. And so I think that awareness piece is very important. Like, it can't just be, we know the rules. We have to make sure that people understand why we have to have these rules.
Not just people, in my opinion, our children. People and change, okay. We've been wanting change since who knows when.
1622.
Since Jesus was
a baby,
crucified.
Oh, since he was a baby.
Since he was a baby, probably. I don't know.
He's wearing diapers.
But we've been wanting change forever, and I'm not hopeful that there's going to be change in my lifetime, or maybe not even in my children's lifetime. But I think it is our duty, I know, I feel very strongly, and I'm passionate about the fact that it is our duty as Black parents, like I said, whether or not you are married to someone in our community, to teach our children how to behave and how to act and how to navigate these systems as Black children. Because let's be clear, if it looked like a duck, walked like a duck, quacked like a duck,
then it's a Delta.
It could be a Delta, but it's definitely a duck. And so, we have all these biracial children running around looking like little Black kids. And then we have parents that are so oblivious because the Black woman, I'm going to switch it up, because the Black woman is married to a white man and she's feeling some type of way because she has access to things through her white husband, and her kids have access to things from their white dad, that these rules somehow don't apply to her biracial children, but they do. And so we're sending these kids out unarmed and unprotected and not well equipped to be able to handle a lot of the situations that they may, more likely than not, find themselves in.
And I just think that, with the way the world is today, that is a very dangerous thing to send your children out unequipped, because it doesn't matter if they're 15, 12, 8, 9, 25, 30, 40. If they've never been taught and they think that the rules are equal across the board, they could find themselves in some horrible positions. I had a friend whose son went to a very large PWI in the Big Ten, and he had great opportunity. He went out, got some internships with this amazing company. Well, during the last year of the internship, and they were going to pick out of it was like 40 or 50 people interning, and they were filling like 5 jobs. And he knew he was one of the top because he works hard. He is a great, young man. And he almost didn't get the job because he was doing some stuff that he saw everybody else doing. And one of those people that knew they weren't going to get an opportunity pointed it out.
Well, was this person also a black young man?
Of course not.
Okay, I just...
And I think that's the reality, is that sometimes when we grow up in the suburbs and our parents are driving nice cars and we're going to these big name schools and our lives just seem so unique and special that we fail to realize that we are still black in America.
Black is black. Black is black. Black is black. If I can't stress that enough, and I know that there's light skin privilege within our community, and we kind of talked about it a little bit. We could talk about it in a full episode some other time, but black is black. To other people, it doesn't matter how light you are. It doesn't matter how much money your parents have. It does not matter what kind of car you drove in high school. It does not matter. None of it matters. Like, none of that matters. What matters is that our kids are in the know enough not to find themselves even in a situation like that.
Right. And I think that we have to be realistic about it. And because of our access and because of the things that we've accomplished in our communities, we actually put our children more at risk sometimes. And what I mean by that is when your kid can afford to have a car in high school.
Yeah.
And I was walking and riding the bus and catching rides, right? But my child has a car.
Mm-hmm.
She could easily be pulled over, and maybe that officer is mad that she has a car because he didn't have one, or she didn't have one, or their kids don't have one. And it's almost like when you find yourself as an adult in a position at work, and there are people that constantly try to tear you down or make you lose that position because they feel like you don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
You could be setting your children up for that same type of experience unknowingly. So if you are having these conversations though, and you are letting them know, like, look, you know what? Yes, we're doing well, or yes, you're able to have this, that, or the other. But understand that doesn't mean the rules stop applying to you. You still need to make sure you, yes, sir, no, sir, that police officer. You need to still make sure that you move slowly. You still need to make sure that you tell them, I am reaching for my car insurance. No sudden moves, all those things, hand on your steering wheel, and don't do anything until they come up other than roll down your window. Like all those little things that we know don't go out the window, like you said, just because now all of a sudden I'm in the suburbs.
We have not arrived, black people, because let's be clear, the collective many speaks way louder than the individual few who have that access. And we've taught our daughters their entire lives that they do have a certain amount of privilege within the black community. And we have explained to them what that privilege within the black community looks like. And we've also explained to them how dangerous that can be for them, not just outside of the black community, but within the black community too. So to me, that is the problem. We still have the collective many who, I hate to say it, but make the rest of us look bad. And so when you have a group of black boys just playing football on the football field, walking home and, oh, let's stop at the store. They're walking home together. They're all straight A students, but they look like a gang. Why is it that they look like a gang though? And why do people think that it's a gang?
But I think that I would have to say I kind of disagree with that, in the sense that our people, I would say the majority of them are in the positions they are in because the system has put them there, and that's not giving them,
I wouldn't say majority,
an excuse. That's not, saying that, hey, well, it sucks to be you, so it just sucks, so your life should suck. But what I'm saying is that I see it too often where people that have made it out, people that have had opportunity, whether they realize it or not, people that had somebody to believe in them, whatever it looks like, they make it to a certain level, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, it's them and us, and the thems are the ones that cause my child not to be able to walk in a group.
No, that's not what I was saying.
Well,
I mean,
it's kind of what it sounded like.
Well, I was say, well, I mean, okay, partially.
You kind of said thems and us.
I didn't say thems and us. I said that the collective many, right? And it is. Perception is reality. If the only exposure that people have to black people is the media and TV, then why would they think anything differently about a black person they've never met before? They don't care if you're a circuit court judge or whatever. Like, they don't know
but
that.
I think
my point is that black is black, period.
Right.
Like,
but
it
I
doesn't
think
matter.
that
If somebody sees you, they just see a black person.
No, but part of that problem is we ourselves allow the BS to happen. And I'm going to give a prime example of this. Power 2, whatever you want to, I don't even know what it's called. I sat down with some people, the second version of Power that just came out.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think of the name.
And, you know, some people, we were just, 3 weeks ago, I think it started up, and somebody was asking me, am I going to watch it? And I was like, no. And they were like, why not? And I explained to them, this was my issue. Do we not have enough issues? Do we not have enough bad press? Do we not already have enough negative, stereotypical crap out there? So my issue with the second version of Power is that it's like you had a kid whose dad was trying to change his bad ways because, well, we all messed up at some point in our lives. He dies. He got killed by his own son. Now his son wants to go out and sell drugs and become a kingpin. And like, this kid had access, opportunity, all the things to change his life. But because the writers didn't want to write that story. They don't want to write the story of Robert Smith. They don't want to share with us the success stories because it doesn't play into the narrative. So it's like, for me, I have issue when we as a group, a collective, the thems, the us's, we all gravitate to all that negativity. And then we wonder why everybody looks at us like that's who we are. Because I'm going to tell you now, you know what? If nobody watched Power 2 or whatever it's called, guess what? It wouldn't be a season 2. But instead, we sit here and we feed our children's minds with this. Because that's what people think being black is. They don't know that being black is being educated. Being black is being CEOs. Being black in America is so much more than just the negative things that everybody focuses on.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Naked Proverbs podcast. We truly want you to have a happy marriage. We want you to thrive in your marriages and indulge in your spouses on a regular basis. Don't forget to follow the Naked Proverbs on whatever podcasting platform you listen on. And we will talk to y'all next week.
Peace.